Guys, it's Isabel here. Welcome to my channel if you're here for the first time, and welcome back if you visited me before. Today I'm going to try and do a VR response to hashtag Hearth and Home decks, originally started by Boho Tarot, but there's quite a lot of different videos online about this now. I've been drawn to do this tag but found it quite a challenge to put my decks into different categories, but I felt like it was a challenge I wanted to take up and I wanted to see if I could do, and so that's why I'm doing it. I have to say that my initial ideas changed, so I've got a few extra decks. So what I might do is kind of the decks that I've got now, but then think about the ones that are my kind of honorary mentions as well. Apologies if the camera's a little bit weird today. I think I've got the lighting slightly different in the room, so it just seems to be reflecting slightly, so I'm going to go with it and see how it goes. So I did try recording this before and I started rambling, so I decided to restart and hopefully I can keep on track this time. So the first prompt is Hearth and Home, the deck that feels like coming home. And when I saw this prompt, the thing that I thought about was the deck that I go back to, and when I go back to it, it slips very easily into alignment with me, I suppose. And for me, that was the Everyday Witch Tarot. Last year, when I first started sort of gathering up tarot decks, and I'd got my first deck, and I then picked up the mini version of the Everyday Witch as an addition to an order, and absolutely loved the pictures, and I'd sit and play with it. But what I realised was that because it's small, you can't always see the detail in the pictures. So it's great for doing a big spread. It's great for doing, like, I have it sat on my desk, and if I just want to do a quick pull or a quick spread and kind of, it's great. But it is actually really quite a small mini deck, if that makes sense. It's not a pocket deck, it really is truly a mini deck. And so you can see it is mini, and I realized that although I liked it and I loved it, I wasn't getting the full understanding of it, because I felt like I needed to know more about why the artist had chosen things the way they had. So I went out and I bought the standard version. Now this is currently my deck, my working deck, in that this, along with its accompanying Everyday Witch Oracle, I'm using for daily pulls at the moment. I plan on switching to the Halloween Tarot and Samhain Oracle soon, but yeah, so this is out because I'm doing that. Being protected currently by a new little bit of selenite I got as a gift the other day, which I think is really cute, this kind of roughed one. So this is my deck that feels like coming home, because it's the deck that, like, when I got this out the other week to start using for this season, it's just every reading has been on track, and I really love coming back to it, and quite often, you know, I'll see something new and I think it works really well. And the Oracle I got recently, and it works so well with it. It really is totally in tune with it, and I'm really loving that as well. So, you know, it is very much a deck that when I come back to it, I sort of instantly fall back into alignment with it. I also love having the book now, because in the book, some people I know don't like the books, but I like to refer to the book, because sometimes there's things that the person creating the deck wants you to get from it. And what I love with this particular deck is that they've put little prompts in the book, little sort of affirmations, little journaling type prompts that I'm finding really useful, just to get me to go, actually, what is this card saying to me? So that's my deck that feels like coming home, the Hearth and Home deck. The Gather Together deck, well, for that I've chosen, sorry, I'm just moving a few things around, my Labyrinth Tarot. Now bear with me on this. This is not because the characters in this remind me of people I know, although perhaps they do, I don't know. It is not, that is not what it is. Also, I know some people have talked on their videos about the decks that they take out and about and use to read with friends. I don't do that. I still only really read for myself. And so therefore, I don't have a deck that reminds me of family and friends from that perspective. This deck reminds me of curling up in front of a good family film at Christmas or any time of year. Labyrinth was a film I first watched, I think, when I was in primary school at a friend's birthday party. So whenever I see it, I'm just reminded of that time. I'm reminded of spending good time with friends. I'm reminded of watching. This was a film that my dad would sit and watch with us, and my mum used to love watching it as well. And having lost my mum and dad, and that, it's kind of, it reminds me of those times. So this reminds me of gathering together with family and friends from that perspective. Not because they look like them or because I'm scared of them, but because of the memories that that film holds more than anything. So I thought it fitted quite nicely in that category for me. So that's that one. So number 3 is Light Up Your Life, the deck that lights your way through the dark. Well, for this one, I've gone back to a popular one. I've gone back to my Lightseers Tarot. Not everyone loves it, but when I got this deck, again, a bit like the Everyday Witch, I seem to find a connection with it. So this deck, when I get it out and use it for a reading or a spread, seems to just fit. But I also think it's got a real lightness to it. It's not, to me, it's not a dark deck. It gets me to think about things, but it's not a deep deck in that sense. It has some really deep meanings and it has some really good prompts. But lots of the cards have this sense of movement and this sense of light to me. So like the rainbow here, it's moving, it's bright, the sun, the beat, you know, the feeling of lightness to me. So that's why it lights up my life. And I know not everyone agrees. It also reminds me of things. So some of the cards don't, and that's the same in any deck and with everybody. But for me, there are certainly cards where I go, actually, yeah, I really like that portrayal, or it reminds me of me, or it just, you know, there's lots of elements where there's a light aspect. I mean, even here, this is one of my favourite hermit cards, this light radiating out from the character, that sense of, you know, going to a still dark place and trying to reflect on something, but just feeling warmth and light surrounding and protecting you, perhaps, or something like that anyway. But, you know, so for me, this definitely lights up my life, because whenever I use it, it sort of seems to work for me. It's a kind of lovely, cheerful sort of deck. Yeah, so that works for me in that sense. Now, I had a bit of a debate about the next one. So the next one was Rainy Days, the deck you want to curl up with on a rainy day. Now, my first instinct was an oracle deck, which I will put in my honorary mentions at the end, perhaps. And then while I was kind of looking through my decks, I was reminded of my Tarot of the Abyss. Now, this isn't a favourite with everybody. I know that. But what I do know as well is that quite a few people, myself included, have sort of found that it's the kind of deck where you perhaps need to work with it. You need to spend time sat with it. So it's ideal for sitting with on a rainy day. And I like to pair it with the Oracle of Echoes, which I also got. And I think that these are the kind of decks where you don't just pull it out. So Lightseers, if I see a spread, I think, oh, I'm going to do that, I don't know, full moon spread today. I can pull Lightseers out and I can do it. The Tarot of the Abyss needs a little bit more time. I know that before I started even using it at all, I went through sort of Anna's description in the guidebook of how she approached the deck and what she felt was the sort of the underlying feel and theme for her of the deck. And I know that for a lot of people, the cards don't perhaps speak to them in the same way, but I find that if I sit with it, so I curl up on a rainy day and sit with it, or sit with the Oracle of Echoes, or sit with both of them. So let me just show you, like, they just work so well together. I've got the alternative Three of Swords in here at the moment. You know, they just work really well together. So you can kind of, you know, the tower collapsing, but there's a silver lining, you know, but they all require, I know with the Oracle, there are a couple of cards that I pulled when I was using this earlier in the summer that I would have to sit with for quite a long time to really get a sense of what they were saying to me. Some of them speak to me really well. Some of them just go, I mean, look at that to me. And I know it's the same artist, so it's the same sense. They've been done at a similar time in that respect. But I do think that, you know, these do in some ways require a little bit of introspection, and therefore they're really good to curl up with on a rainy day, pull a card and really sit with the card or two, sit with the book. So those are a pair to make up my rainy days decks, the ones that I curl up with on a rainy day. So the next prompt is Harvest Nights. So that's the deck that evokes harvest vibes or bonfire nights. Now, I was a bit not sure about this, and again I kind of changed my plan and my idea. So my initial instinct was my Forest of Enchantment. So I'm just going to get it out because it's in the big box, and you know, so the Forest of Enchantment sort of reminded me of, because it's like forests and it's sort of enchantment, you know, you can see all the harvest, the food in many of them. You can see the kind of leaves, these kind of candles reminding me of this. It just reminds me of this time of year. It just reminds me of autumn. It reminds me of curling up at home. It's not a deck I mentioned in actually no, I was going to do my tarot aesthetic, and this will be in that video as well. I still need to do that one. I have this deck I bought because I love the art, and I was like, fell in love with that. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's a deck that I find hard to work with, so I haven't played with it very much, but it is a deck that when I get it out, it feels like autumnal. You know, how much more autumnal can you get? But I also thought within this category of this Oracle deck as well. So I think there were a few, and I thought, well, you know, what would I go for? But the other one I thought of, so this is my White Hair Wisdom, which is by Phil and Jackie Lovesey. So I haven't got their other Arboridium deck, but I got this one, and this is the pocket version, so it's slightly smaller. So let me just zoom in, see if I can zoom in a bit more for you. So this also reminds me of that. It's got a very wintry autumnal feel to it. So basically, there are cards that are associated with the different elements. So, and then there are cards that are associated, they're kind of witch element cards. So the different kind of border tells you if it's a spirit card, an air card, an earth card, or for some of them they're like I think they're called a witch card. So, but it just, this to me as well kind of made me feel a little bit autumnal into winter. So I think this also added to it as well. So that's my kind of little extra one in this category. But for my Harvest Nights, I went with, my initial instinct was my Forest of Enchantment Tarot. What's next? Handmade with Love, the deck that feels like a homespun gift. I found this one a little bit challenging. I wasn't sure what to put in this category. I wasn't really sure, but then I remembered my Wicker Moon Tarot, so I'm going to have to zoom back out again because these cards are much much bigger. And one of the reasons that I put this in this category is because this is a self-published deck from a lady in the UK. I've done videos on it. I've mentioned it a few times. And what she did, Shirley Moon, did with this was she chose people she knew to form the characters in the deck. So the people in the deck are based on people she knows, and that is why it feels like a homespun gift to me. Not only was it self-published, it came in a lovely bag. It doesn't have a box. It's from someone in the UK. It came with like incense and everything. But I think the fact that these cards are designed these are reflections of people she knows, people that are her friends and her family, people that live near her. And I thought that that made it feel like a homespun gift to me, because you know that she's kind of thought about the characters involved, and when you read the book she tells you a little bit about them. So this is Shirley herself, you know, and it's just, I think that that to me made it feel like a homespun gift. So next category, nearly there now. Thankful, grateful, blessed. The deck that helps you appreciate the good times. Now this one really, this was the one that for a while I had as a gap, and I'm still not sure if I've made the right choice. However, at the moment I have picked out a little oracle deck. Now this is another self-published UK deck, so it's not a mass market deck. I got it from the creator on Etsy, and this little deck is called the Garden Oracle, and it's all sort of pictures and photos of things which she's then added keywords to, and she's recently done a book to go with it, which is really sweet. So the reason I've included this, I'm going to zoom in again because they're quite small cards, is because this deck I quite often carry with me, and I'll pull out when I need a bit of grounding, and that is the exact reason I think that this is my grateful, thankful, grateful, blessed deck, because it reminds me to be grateful for the world around me. It reminds me to ground in nature. It reminds me of the things that I can think of that keep me calm. And I just think that in some ways it reminds me to be grateful in that respect. And that's why I chose this, you know. It's a lovely little deck. It's very personal to Fiona, who created it. But the little cards speak really nicely, and I love just, you know, the gratefulness of the, okay, sorry, spider, but, you know, if you don't like spiders, fine, but you have to be grateful for the creation around you, whether you believe in God or Mother Earth or both or a combination, whatever your belief is, you have to be grateful. It makes me grateful for the people who can construct, for the earth, for our goddesses and gods, for our time outside. And so for me, this was my grateful, thankful, I can't even get that right now, can I? The deck that helps me appreciate the good times, because it reminds me to be grateful. So I'm not necessarily appreciate the good times, but it reminds me to be grateful. I may well come back and go, well, actually, I should have picked that deck because it reminds me of this or that. But I don't think at the moment there are any of my decks that particularly remind me of. I think I took up the grateful and the thankful part a little bit more. So that was that one. And then Comfy and Cozy, the deck that's always there for you. Well, I'm afraid this is not a tarot, but an oracle again. So this is my Mist of Avalon Oracle. So this, having met Simon's channel last year, was the second deck I got, the second oracle. I'd been to Glastonbury earlier in the year. I love everything Glastonbury, Arthurian, Celtic, Druid, all those kind of things is just me. And I got this deck having seen some pictures, and whenever I go and pull this deck out, it's just, I love it. I love what it says to me. I love the cards that come out. The cards usually speak to me. This could be an autumnal deck actually as well. It also could be, this deck was the deck that nearly went in about 3 categories. So whenever I pull this deck out, it's a little bit, yeah, you can tell I've used this one more than the others. Because it's glossy, and because I'm not very great at shuffling, it is a little bit short at the sides. But this deck just does remind me, it's the one I come home to. It's the one that whenever I pull it out, it works. But this and the Everyday Witch, I think, are interchangeable. I actually had them the other way around. So I had Everyday Witch as my Comfy Cozy, and this is my Hearth and Home. But I think that, yeah, so they are interchangeable, because this feels like coming home as well. It reminds me, do you know what? It also reminds me of family and friends. And the reason for that is because we used to go on, we went on a holiday one year to Ireland, and my dad and we spent the whole holiday playing Hunt the Dolmen. We hunted for towers, And we always did like stuff like that when we were on holiday. We like to go to Roman forts. So, you know, this kind of deck, looking at sort of, you know, the Celtic lands and stuff, reminds me of time spent with my dad, who's no longer with us. So this is my comfy and cozy, the deck that's always there for you. And that's the list. Now, another honorary mention that had originally appeared in the list and then came out was my Through the Eyes of the Soul. I had this as my rainy days deck to start with, and as I said, this was the one because this is one that, again, you can sit with the pictures and just kind of muse on them, and it's a really nice one for just kind of going, oh, what's going on here, and just sitting with, having them out. Lovely art. I've also got an extra book that I bought alongside, but yeah, so that's where I'm at. So my Hearth and Home was my Everyday Witch, interchangeable with my Mist of Avalon. My Gather Together was my Labyrinth. Light Up Your Life was my Light Seers. Rainy Days, I then put my Tower of the Abyss with the Oracle of Echoes, because they really, you know, they're quite deep decks for me. My Harvest Nights was my Forest Enchantment with an honorary mention of the Whitehair Wisdom. Handmade with Love was my Midwicca Moon, and Thankful, Grateful, Blessed was my Garden Oracle, because I found that one was the one that I had a gap for a long time. And Comfy Cozy was my Mists of Avalon, again interchangeable Everyday Witch. I've really enjoyed trying this tag, and I hope you've enjoyed my collection. My collection's growing, and this tag allowed me to stop and think about what the decks mean to me on a sort of more grounded level. I've looked at some of the other tags around, kind of, you know, who you date and that, and I find those a lot harder. I find it hard to almost personalize, to personify the decks. So I really enjoyed trying this tag because I found it a lot more easier to work with these prompts. So I hope you've enjoyed my collection. I'm going to carry on watching them myself. Do let me know what you think. I also think this is something I might come back to next year and try again, because by then, you know, my collection and my feelings might have changed. And I like the idea of seeing if things have moved or if they're the same. But for now, I wish you all well. Take care of yourselves, everybody, and until my next video, goodbye.